Do we have a quorum?
You do have a quorum.
Chair's here.
It's the pleasure of the chair how he would like to proceed.
What are we short? 2 people, but we have a quorum?
We have a quorum and we are short 2 people.
I say we go ahead and start.
Okay.
Had a baby.
So I'm going to call this meeting of HWMA June meeting to order. And I guess the next item is roll call.
Tyler?
Yeah, sorry, a lot of stuff happened at once right there. Make sure everybody's connected. Pereira?
Hello.
Castellano?
Here. Hi.
Hogan?
Here.
Smith?
Here. Oh,
Bone?
here.
And Wilson.
Frank, are you on mute?
I don't believe I'm on mute.
Oh, he's present.
And y'all can hear me all
Were you,
right.
were you addressing me?
Yeah. Tyler, for some reason, you're a little muffled when you're aired. There's a little background hum and a muffle.
I will get nearer to the computer.
That's much better.
We are all here. That is full attendance.
Oh, we have a full, we're not missing anybody.
That is correct.
That is correct. Okay. Then I will move on to the next item is the consent calendar. Do you want the item, want to read what the items are individually or just note the statement that all matters under the consent calendar are considered to be routine by the HWMA board and will be enacted upon by one motion unless a specific request for review is made by a member of the board or member of the public. The consent calendar will not be read. There will be no separate discussion of these items unless pulled for discussion. So does anyone wish to pull an item from the consent calendar?
I'd like to pull 2C.
Pull 2.
C, yes, correct. Our calendar for next fiscal year.
Okay.
Okay. Anyone else wish to pull any item? Does anyone from the public wish to pull an item?
I move the consent calendar with the adjustments of item C being pulled.
Do we have a second?
A second.
I didn't hear who that was, but we have a second.
That was Leslie.
Leslie, thank you. All right, well, we please take a roll call vote on the consent calendar. All items except item C.
Pereira?
Hi.
Hogan?
Aye.
Castellano?
Hi.
Smith?
Aye.
Bone?
10-4.
Wilson?
Yes. And doesn't look like it's called out separately, but do we call that item back to MC?
We can go ahead and take it up now. It should be pretty short. This is just our board meeting calendar. So I would just ask Leslie to go ahead and address the item.
Oh, it was me. It was Elaine.
Oh, I'm
that
sorry,
pulled it.
Elaine. I'm
Yeah,
looking at
no
Leslie's
problem.
picture.
That's okay. No problem. Yeah, I just noted that after the emergency declaration is done, we're set to return fully in person. And I wanted to talk to the board more about that. I think there's a lot of improved access that has happened with people being able to come to our meetings via Zoom, both us as board members and also members of the public. So I wanted to talk about the possibility of some kind of hybrid where we're still at the Eureka City Hall and people still also have the opportunity to participate via Zoom or some other platform. So that was my only thought with the calendar, because it talks about that in the discussion.
Is it talk about that on our calendar, or is that the calendar just to?
Yeah, in the discussion part that, the moment that the stay at home and shelter in place emergency orders are lifted, that we'll be returning completely in person. And I just wanted us to discuss the option of more of a hybrid model where we're in person and still allowing people to access virtually to improve participation.
So
And-
sorry, Leslie.
Oh, no, I can wait. I can wait.
Well, I was just going to note that with this particular agenda item, it was put together before sort of the latest rollout of returning, and it actually predated the governor making the decision to allow local government to continue holding our meetings via Zoom or some other platform that people are able to partake. And, I think there's two things. One is we don't have to be in a hurry. We're going to have to coordinate with the city, because until the city council, determines that their chambers will be open, we'll just have to continue holding our meetings this way. The second component about the engagement for the public to participate in the meetings at the point that we begin coming back into council chambers. I think that's one of the things that I personally have really enjoyed about these meetings. So for instance, Gary Penning is on the line, as well as representatives from Hambro, and they can have this back and forth, and that's been really good. We're going to have to coordinate with the city of Eureka, because it's their infrastructure. It's not our infrastructure that we would be having to work with. And I think that, some discussions with city council would be, well, not city council themselves, but city representatives would be appropriate to figure out how we can enable such continued activity. Probably the one really great thing out of this whole pandemic has been the ability to host these meetings remotely and have a higher level of engagement with the general public. So I'd like to find some sort of a hybrid approach to that as well. That, like I said, the staff report was put together well before we were looking at what has been announced in the last week.
So what you're saying is you're covering this in the staff report.
Yes.
Okay, that's because that was one of my questions as well. I know we've briefly touched it in RCEA, the council meeting. He's going to lift the orders on the 15th, so that's not even a week away, and all this is supposed to come together in all the jurisdictions and boards. So.
But they are allowing.
It doesn't seem very well. Look, that's going to happen here immediately. Although we just run down and run in the building. I mean, I don't see that happening.
So the governor is enabling local government to continue holding remote meetings, because if the local community feels that that's more appropriate, there is some discretion for local government to figure out what's going to fit best for them. So they are going to be enabling meetings, public agencies to host meetings for probably another couple of months. And in the interim, hopefully we'll be able to see some additional improvements so that the public can continue to participate in this kind of a venue. I don't know what that looks like. Again, we'll have to coordinate with Eureka on that.
Can you?
Just to speak quickly for, on what I know of what we're working on for Eureka, we are, looking at a very similar model to which you spoke, Elaine, in which hybrid, platforming would be possible. So I definitely would encourage Director Duffy and staff to have that conversation with city staff, but we are making those changes already and working on the kind of the tech needs that would allow to have, in person with people accessing via Zoom.
Okay, great. I have nothing further.
Would you like to make a motion to accept
And just-
item 2C?
And just, through the chair, just to an observation, I don't really know as public comment has really increased over the last 8 meetings since we've been on Zoom. I think we've only had 4, so I'm just saying it has not changed. I know public access is important, but for us, it hasn't changed much at all.
I believe you're correct in it, and I also see that. Well, I see that in all of them, in the council and the RCEA that I'm involved with. And public comment has no. Yes.
In Ferndale, when we have the council meetings, there are certainly more people attending, but I notice that the majority of the new people attending don't speak up, but they're there on the Zoom. Whereas when we had the meetings in person, there was hardly anyone in the meeting hall, to tell you the truth, a scattering 2 or 3 people. But on Zoom, there'll be 10 or 12. They just don't speak up.
So one other thing I want to remind board members is that Zoom is not the only way that this particular meeting is being broadcast. We also have a parallel platform, which is YouTube. I actually hear from a lot of people who are watching us via YouTube, and it doesn't provide them the opportunity to comment. I've been kind of surprised a few times by some of the people who have said, "Oh, we saw your meeting." And I said, "Oh, I didn't see you on our, on our little board here where all the faces and names start showing up." I'm like, "Oh no, watched you on YouTube." I'm like, "Okay." So, I think the important thing is not necessarily that, more people are talking so much as people are taking the opportunity to, observe what is happening at the board level and the different issues that, we are all discussing.
Yep.
If I understand this motion, this is simply approves the calendar. It doesn't really address how you do it. It just approves whether there's a meeting or no meeting. Is that correct?
That is correct. It's simply setting the dates of the board meetings for the upcoming year, making sure that this does work for the majority of our representatives and allows scheduling to commence from there.
I make a motion that we approve item C on the consent calendar.
You have a second?
I'll second.
We have a second. Please take a roll call vote.
Tyler?
Yeah, sorry, there's lots going on as usual. Pereira,
Aye.
Hogan,
Aye.
Castellano,
Aye.
Smith,
Aye.
Bone,
10-4.
Wilson.
Yes. Motion passes unanimously. Next item on our agenda is, I believe, the
Public comment on
I think
non-agenda
we're down
items.
to public comment.
And she said she's happy to come in and talk to you, but she said, I just feel bad because I know you're really busy and I don't want to take up the time.
I don't know who's
Listen.
talking about. I can't.
I'm
Yeah,
sorry.
I'm not certain.
Do we need, can I make a nomination?
This is public comment and non-agenda items.
Oh, I'm sorry, excuse me.
So.
Or do you want me to read that? I guess we do, but this is the time to approve, is provided for people who wish to address the board on any subject, written or oral, which is not communication concerning matters. I'm sorry, this is small print and that's hard to read. Normally,
Frank, if you'd like, I can go ahead and read it.
why don't you read it?
Yeah, let me just scroll back up to the top here real quick. This time is provided for people to address the board or to submit written communications concerning matters not on this agenda. Board members may respond to statements, but any requests that requires board action will be referred to staff for review. Reasonable time limits may be imposed on both the total amount of time allocated for this item and the time permitted to each individual speaker. Such time allotment or portion thereof shall not be transferred to other speakers. I do want board members to know that while we did receive 2 pieces of correspondence, which was emailed to each of you earlier today, they do not pertain to comment on non-agenda items. They were specific to item number 6. I have not received any additional public comment. Tyler, did you receive anything after you and I?
I have not received anything today.
Okay. And so with the board, I would simply ask if there is anybody online who would like to address the board. I see a head shake from Linda.
I have no hands raised as well.
There's no hands raised. So, Mr. Chair, it appears that there is nobody who wants to provide written spoken comment to you. And we can move on to agenda item number 4.
All right, let's move on to item number 4, nomination and election of officers fiscal year
We'll see you
2021-22.
Saturday at least. Thanks, Brad.
So this item, as I'm scrolling back down, as board members will recall, our joint powers agreement requires that the board appoint new board officers each fiscal year. And of course, the term of the office will begin on July 1st and run through June 30th of next year. The current officers are Frank Wilson, he is our chair from the city of Rio Dell, and our vice chair is Leslie Castellano with the city of Eureka. And so we're simply asking that the board open up the topic for discussion and go ahead and take action. And it looks like Rex is ready to rock and roll.
Frank, I'd like to appoint Leslie Castellano as chair and Elaine Hogan as vice chair.
I'll second that.
Now you ask for any more nominations.
Yeah. I'm still writing down things
I don't know who's
myself.
running the meeting. I'm sorry. Either the executive director or the chair asked for.
Are there any other, I guess, are there any more nominations? I'm not sure I'm not sure what's it's a bit confusing today, but are there any other nominations? Hearing none, then I guess that will bring us back to voting on the current nominations. We have Leslie Castellano and Elaine Hogan as chair and vice chair. Do we vote for those individually, or do we vote for them as a group?
The motion was made so that it would be
Both.
Leslie as chair and Elaine as vice chair. You might want to just make sure that that's going to work for them.
Director Hogan or Director Castellano, does that work for you?
I saw a thumb. I don't know which way it was pointing, but I saw a thumb.
I'm good. Yeah, that was a thumbs up.
Okay.
Yeah, for me as well. Thank you.
Okay. Both are affirmative to the position. With that in mind, we have a motion and a second. When we go ahead and vote then.
Any public comment?
Do we have any public comment?
I see no hands raised.
We'll go ahead and take the vote. Tyler, can you do roll call vote, please?
Herrera,
Hi.
Hogan,
Aye.
Castellano,
And I just want to say thanks to Frank, because I think you've done a really great job, and I've just enjoyed your presence and your input at the meetings. So just appreciating you as the chair for the past year.
Thank you.
Smith,
Aye.
Bone,
Therefore,
and Wilson.
Yes.
Motion passes unanimously.
All right, that motion passes and we will move on to item 5.
Okay, moving right along. Item number 5 is a proposed agreement between HWMA and the city of Fortuna to provide household hazardous waste services. We're recommending the board approve an agreement between HWMA and the city, who is a non-member agency for the provision of hazardous waste services. This fee establishment and service certainly represents an opportunity towards establishing regionalized services. I do want to note that after the agenda posting, HWMA staff received some additional minor modifications from Fortuna, and our recommendation to the board is to direct approval of the agreement with the city of Fortuna for the household hazardous waste services with clarifying revisions that would be then consistent with the agreement's intent and subject to approval by general counsel, and then authorize me to go ahead and sign the agreement. I do want to note that as described in the staff report, HWMA operates the household hazardous waste facility at the Hawthorne Street transfer station, and we accept residential and conditionally exempt small quantity generator hazardous waste, which is generated by some commercial businesses from our member agencies who are located in. These services are funded through our household hazardous waste fee, which is $6.22 per ton of collected solid waste. And that fee enables the no charge disposal for household residential hazardous waste and minimal charges to those small business generators. The city of Fortuna and the residents and businesses do not have a household hazardous waste collection facility, which is located within the city's jurisdiction. And so when Fortuna residents visit HWMA's facility, they have to pay a specified non-member rate to dispose of their hazardous waste in order to collect the cost. And then, our joint powers agreement does state that the authority can enter into a contract with any member or non-member entity relating to our transfer station. I want to throw a caveat out there and say that's not the case for all types of agreements that we might consider, but in this case, it certainly would apply. So Fortuna residents and those small quantity generators could then dispose of their materials at our HHW facility. The city is proposing to incorporate and approve a collection of a service fee beginning on July 1st of this year for this hazardous waste into their franchise agreement. And they would then direct their franchise hauler, who is Eel River Ecology, to pay the collected fees to HWMA on a quarterly basis based on the actual solid waste tonnage collected. Should HWMA board agree, city staff is going to then present this agreement to their city council on June 22nd for their consideration and approval. We're certainly, again, recommending that the board direct approval of the agreement with the city with those clarifying revisions consistent with the agreement. And again, it would be subject to approval by our general counsel and then authorize the agreement to move forward with this. Unfortunately, I want to note the city manager, Merritt Perry, is not available this evening, but we had another conversation earlier today, and he and the council remain in support of this effort. And that concludes the staff report.
All right, any discussion by the board? Hearing none, is there any discussion from the public on this? Again, I'm hearing.
I see no hands raised.
Okay, I'm hearing nothing from them. So then would someone wish to make a motion on this?
Make a motion for staff's recommendation.
You have a second?
Second that.
We have a motion, a second by Mr. Smith. All right, please vote. Tyler?
Pereira,
Aye.
Hogan,
Aye.
Castellano,
Aye.
Smith,
Aye.
Bone,
Yeah, for
Wilson.
Yes.
Motion passes unanimously.
Motion passes, and we will move on to standing agreement with the household weather rate. Standing, aren't we doing, didn't we have a letter here?
Yeah, so I'll
That was,
touch
that
that
was in the
in
consent, no,
No,
we're
no.
on
You're
item
on,
6.
you're
Are
on
we?
item number 6. It's the standing item for the CRV.
Standing item on
report.
CRV by the director.
Yes. The agenda packet does have an attachment with the updates for Assemblymember Woods's bill 1311 with the status, as well as SB 38. Both of these bills are working their way through their respective committees, and attached to the staff report is the status of SB 38, which was supported by the HWMA board at the April meeting and has received overwhelming support by the Senate. The bill is now going to be going before the Assembly for consideration, and then hopefully to the governor to sign into law. Another bill that the board supported was AB 1311 to allow certified redemption recycling centers to schedule appointments for consumers who are redeeming CRV. This bill passed out of the Assembly Appropriations Committee on May 20th in a 16-0 vote. The committee's role, of course, then was to take a look at the financial impact of the proposed legislation, and has gone to a full vote of the Assembly floor on the 4th where it passed. It's now been forwarded into the Senate for consideration. So this is, obviously very promising with respect to our ability to implement appointments, which will be necessary. Staff is continuing to work on a proposal for an upcoming board meeting to receive, discuss, and have the board provide some direction for CRV services as well as the service funding. As noted in the email that was sent this afternoon, there are representatives from an out-of-county recycling center who are interested in conceptually establishing a recycling center in Humboldt, and they would like to address the board this evening with their conceptual proposal. And they do have a question for board members in order for them to determine what their next steps will be. We've had a number of conversations with Hambro as well as the member agency jurisdiction, and they have the proposal that they're going to be sharing with you this evening. We have Randy Scott and Dave Slagle. I hope I can see their logo up on the screen, but I haven't seen them yet. And so I'm recommending that the board hear their conceptual proposal and to provide some general feedback so that they can continue their efforts. I do just want to remind board members that we've been given a particular task. So we've been moving forward with the efforts that we need to undertake. And so in our conversations with Hambro, they're looking for some assurances from me that I can't necessarily provide. So they're here to discuss with you what they are working on. So Dave and Randy, I'm turning it over to you. And I do want to remind board members, you do have that email which was sent to you this afternoon.
Executive Director, through the chair. Hello.
Go ahead, Rex.
When did we, I remember that picture very well with them sitting at that table. When were they last here? Hambro,
Physically?
talking about this? Yes, specifically.
Oh,
You guys have the date? I want to apologize. We haven't had you back 5 months ago to make this happen, because I get 10 phone calls a week about this and we have got nowhere. So you guys come in here, we'll help you in any way we can.
so Rex, they came before the board in November, and they let me know in January that they were not finding that it was feasible. That doesn't mean that we haven't had, stopped our conversations. They've been working with Bigfoot Recycling, who also was doing some outreach, which I briefed the board on in May, and they're here this evening.
Well, good afternoon. I'm Dave Slagle, the CEO of Hambro Group. We're a group of companies, Hambro WSG that handles the transfer station here for Del Norte County. Humboldt Forest that used to handle timber products, but now we're in a different mode, surviving. One of the aspects that we've done well with, particularly for the last year and several months, is the recycling center. It's been a great deal for us. We've got people traveling all the way from Laytonville to come up here and bring their items. Last chance grades created some problems. We get our customers in 2 or 3 rushes a day as the highway opens up, and then they come in, we service them, they turn around, wait 2 hours to return back to Humboldt County. So we continue to service these customers who are really making a great effort to come up here. It takes them, over half a day now with the traffic problems they've encountered. And over the last several months, we have continued to look into the potential of operating down in Humboldt County. A couple of the things that were restricting us 3 or 4 months ago, one was the uncertainty of what the legislature was going to do. As I understood SB 38, and I still haven't got them all lined up in my mind, but SB 38 was going to possibly change dramatically the way Cal Recycle was going to operate. They were going to have an oversight board, and it was going to be turned over to the private sector more. And we sure didn't want to make a big run at this project not knowing what was going to happen. It appears that they, no matter what happens, they're going to be counting on recycling centers. Again, we've operated ours successfully even prior to the pandemic, but we were suffering a bit as the prices, aluminum went from when we started at 85 cents a pound, it dropped down to 27 cents a pound. And that was an eye-opener. Can we operate at that level? We determined we could, but we had to reduce staff and get more efficient, which we did. We've got a great crew. We've been really blessed to have some guys that work very hard. Not saying that they were perfect. We did have to terminate a group of guys who, in fact, were stealing funds. When you handle this kind of cash, you have problems. An issue we will be concerned with wherever we open. So as we looked into Humboldt County, and we appreciate Jill's assistance, she's given us some numbers, and we've talked about numbers all along with a variety of people coming up and people down there, and we could still use some more numbers. But using our performance, our judgment, we could be successful. One of the big driver is the amount of material we'd handle. If we could go to Humboldt County, if you've seen the conceptual proposal, we would move to Arcata first. We found a location down on G Street that we could get traffic in. We could handle, probably we're looking to handle a couple of scales, and we'd have 4 to 8 stalls that are being operated at the time to receive the material. We think we could be very efficient. We could handle, we're looking at around 30 cars on the properties, so they wouldn't have to all be lined up along the rural road we would be on, relatively rural, it's still in the city limits. So we see some real positives down there. We understand the system. It's not an easy system. We understand the hurdles of opening a recycling center. It takes a lot of money, not just the capital outlay, but to purchase those items, we'd be looking at dealing with the state, who were to go straight through the state and not another processor, which would just become a processor here in Del Norte County, but we would only be a recycling center in Humboldt County. You might be 30 to 45 days out before you receive your funds. And if you're passing out $10,000 a day and you're going 30 to 45 days out, that's a lot of cash you've got to handle. The equipment we were hoping the people in Humboldt County would give us their equipment. That was a joke. No one's giving us anything. We're expecting to purchase that equipment and looking at in Arcata to run as many as 2 balers and 2 crushers at a time. This would be have to be a very efficient process. We can do it based on the experience we've got. But again, the volume of material is what's critical. We're looking to you, the operators in Eureka, Arcata, McKinleyville, and Fortuna. I guess there was one even in further southern Humboldt County. If they're going to come back online, that would reduce the amount of material we would be handling. And we need that material in order to run a larger scale, efficient operation. So our question to you is, what is your plan? If we were to open we would certainly relieve from pressure off of your operations, but we thrive on pressure, and we need that pressure in order to be successful. So we present this option to you tonight. If we can get some feedback from you folks as well as the other recyclers, we would be ready to commence filing for our certificate, making arrangements with the city of Arcata, who we've already had discussions with, but we certainly don't have their approval at this time. But it seems that most of the people in Humboldt County are willing to work with us to do what needs to be done to get a recycling center in Humboldt County. We're willing to provide those services. We just need some guidance from the folks that are there in order to kick this thing off. And I genuinely feel that we could be operating in 90 to 120 days. Quote Forrest, and that's all I have to say.
Responses come from the board or through the executive director?
Making sure my mute is not on. Well, one of the reasons that we've got this for you guys is so that we can get your feedback back. We've been moving forward with our planning efforts. Rex, you weren't here for this part of the conversation at the last meeting, but one of our pieces that we're trying to work on is the fact that one of the other parties, if you will, they're a certified processor, and that's where we sent all of our glass through. And better than half of the material that we receive is glass, so we don't have the benefit of either the crushing or the hauling services because they are now decertified. So we've been trying to work on how we would address that, getting equipment, how we would store all of this. We've got a number of logistical things that we've been teasing out. So in our conversations with Hambro, they basically are asking that we wouldn't be reopening the recycling CRV at the Hawthorne Street because they need to have the volume of material. In the conversations, I'm sorry,
includes glass?
It would be all of it. So CRV is CRV. So if it's CRV, they are asking that we not do any CRV redemption.
Fully agree, but would that be all other non-CRV glass also, i.e. mayonnaise bottles, other things? I mean, there is a lot of other glass besides CRV bottles.
There is a lot of other glass, and we've been able to incorporate that with our mixed stream that we send over to Somalia for processing, and they're able to handle it there because it's non-CRV.
Okay.
Yeah. So,
CRV.
I'm sorry?
We would only handle CRV material.
That's correct. So when we've had our conversation, I've asked both Randy and Dave, directly. So let's say Humboldt Sanitation wants to get back into the fold in terms of performing CRV buyback. They see them as less of a consideration or concern because their volume is so much smaller than what is handled by HWMA. And likewise, if Fortuna, Recology in this case, was going to get back in, then they felt like that wasn't as important. That was, based on our conversation about a week and a half ago, 2 weeks ago. Maybe some of that has changed since they've been putting more numbers together. But that's not a call that I can make. This is a a call that the board needs to give some direction on, and I think that, what they're looking for is sort of a go, no go sort of response. They need to be able to continue their feasibility analysis to the siting and permitting to establishing a CRV center. And as noted, if everything lines up perfectly, they may be able to get something in 90 to 120 days. But they're trying to figure out if HWMA comes back in, right? We've got the lion's share of the activity that has happened on our site. So we're trying to figure out how to thread the needle on this. I hope that helps answer the question, Rex.
I would say, I mean, it's like we want to jump in when the money's good and we want to jump out when the money's not good, and they're making it work. And in 99, when the JPA was formed for Humboldt Waste Management, recycling was not in the wheelhouse. I mean, neither was a lot of the stuff. We've since adapted, but we found through different people that there was financials to maybe be made and stuff like that. And unless we've got a good plan, I mean, I'm still getting too many phone calls on recycling. And I still don't have a good answer, except maybe something's going to pass and we're working on something, a year later. And you guys brought too many cars and we were scared of them. We can't do it. And I think Jim Martin's letter was one of the better ones I've ever seen written, because I can't figure out how Kentucky Fried stayed open. But I'm just saying, if Hambro is going to make the investment, and I would like him to let them know we'd accept them with open arms, because at the end of the day, our JPA is formed to serve the people of Humboldt County, and we have done a lousy job of that in the last year. With that being said, there are restaurants, hotels, the fish aquarium and everything else has been just happy as hell that you guys are doing this, because people are spending a lot of the money that they get right there in Crescent City and coming home with their jeans empty, but they've had a day up in Crescent City. So Trees of Mystery have been pretty happy, he said too. So with that being said, I mean, I don't know if I know we can't sell them our equipment, or maybe we can if it's just for cans and bottles. I don't know if we're crushing anything else, and we show a partnership with them, but we're not serving the people of Humboldt the way it sits, and we're doing a disservice if we just jump in if it comes up. Like, I mean, cardboard's a really good thing to be in right now, because all of a sudden it's jumped up in price, but cans will come back probably, but they'll go back down too. So I would support Hambro in their endeavors and probably be able to help them find some property.
So I do want to quickly note that we do operate the Eureka Recycling Center for drop-off services, and we receive approximately 3,000 tons of materials, cardboard included, as well as appliances. In fact, we're the only place that are taking appliances. Even Humboldt Sanitation brings us the appliances that are dropped off with them, as well as the e-waste. So we receive a little over 3,000 tons of that material. What the CRV has represented, which is actually the certified component of our recycling center, is about 1,000 pounds. So, I appreciate this, like, well, maybe if you have some spare equipment laying around, push it off to them. We actually need it to continue providing these services to our residents. When the authority purchased the property, we agreed to operate a drop-off center for the city of Eureka residents, because at that time, Arcata residents were able to drop off their recyclables to the city, to the Arcata Community Recycling Center. And likewise with Fortuna, they had a recycling center. So, we do continue to operate. That's been one of our challenges. How do we ensure that residents are able to drop off their appliances and source separated materials and e-waste while trying to, manage the inbound CRV? So that has been our challenge as we were coming up to the pandemic. It was becoming increasingly a pinch point, and we've been, sorry, Linda, hoping that we were going to be able to get control over the neighboring property so that we could get some breathing room to store the material that's been coming in, because we had some serious storage problems. So, I think it's really great that Hambro is wanting to, come in they just need some direction from you guys as far as how you're wanting to manage us.
You guys want to stay at my house till you get it done? That's my direction. I'll help in any way I can.
I have a question. So just noting how this is on our agenda as a report out. Obviously we can't, make any, give formal direction. So it sounds like we're giving some feedback, but a question I have is, would this need to come back to the board in some form of like in a formalized agreement, or, what would be really the nature of, let's say we give the feedback of, yes, we would be interested in supporting this, which means then that we would not be providing a service. Is there any reason why we would need to have something in writing to codify that, to just make that really explicit? And then if for some, also, if we're years down the road, this agency could have different direction. And so I think, a different board might have different direction, the circumstances may change. And so perhaps something in writing would be reasonable for both parties.
Yeah, we would like to bring back to you, like I said, it's one of the things that we're working on around the Eureka Recycling Center, and the different activities and how and why. As Rex aptly noted, when the market was good, everybody wanted in. And, it was our contractor at the time that initiated the CRV buyback. And when HWMA decided to let that agreement end, there was considerable discussion by the board as to whether to continue with the CRV, recognizing that it did serve as some competition to some of the other smaller recycling centers that were in Eureka. The direction at that time was to go ahead and do it because it was such a nominal amount of activity. It was part of that one-stop shop sort of perspective. But as those other recycling centers began closing for a variety of reasons, more and more of our activity became CRV, and it went up pretty significantly. So to answer your question, kind of circling back, yeah, we want to bring back to you a full proposal of what we're needing, because again, we've got a lot of space constraints. We've got some other things we'd like to propose to the board around that. But I think we're just looking more for just sort of a general indication right now, and that would help Hambro decide how they're going to move forward with their planning activities.
Is anyone else? I have a comment here briefly. I agree that we need to do what we can to encourage Hambro to move ahead with this. The in and out, this recycling thing is going to be crazy going forward forever. I mean, it's going to be up and down and in and out. But they need to be protected as a business to make an investment to make this happen. So to get something solid, the little bit that we would probably gain out of this if it ever got good that we would want to jump into, it wouldn't be worth, I think, jeopardizing the citizens of Humboldt County and particularly the businesses that have gotten saddled with this, that they get fined. So I'm all for making a recommendation that that we do bring it back to the board and we get some stuff in writing that would clarify what we're doing, but that we'd also protect Hambro to allow them to get something stable for our county. And so I'm all for Hambro too. That's all I have.
I would suggest, Jill, when you write this up, to give them some idea of to pay back equipment and everything else is shorter, but do a 10-year non-compete clause. A minimum 10 years non-compete, and Hambro can chime in and say if they need 12 or 14 to get a return on investment on their equipment. But we just do a non-compete clause, and then if, like Ferrer said, a board comes in later on, but we can't go back and forth because another board comes in that doesn't. They've seemed to make it work. We can't make it work. We come up with a myriad of reasons where it worked before and it can't work now. So what I just say is I would make sure we put a non-compete clause that's comfortable with them so they can buy their equipment and have a return on investment. and give them some clear direction today so they can at least start swimming up the river and not waiting till we actually put something in paper with a, verbal commitment, or at least they can at least see where we're headed so we can start moving on that 90 and 120 day time frame. That the closures at last chance, I hear, may be increasing.
That sounds good to Hambro. That's what we needed. If we didn't expect to get anything, of course, tonight, but the consensus alone with the potential for that non-compete agreement for 10 years sounds excellent. We will continue to move ahead. City of Arcata is our next stop. If we can secure that spot down on South G Street. We've already looked into equipment purchases, a variety of other things. So we're moving on this. We appreciate your coming on board with us. Look forward to working with you, and we'll continue to move ahead. Get the non-compete agreement signed, or it sounds like I'm assuming that there's consensus approval, and we'll be contacting those other operators this week. Well, week's about over, but we'll still try to contact them this week so we can get moving.
So I do want to note real quickly that whatever HWMA does, it's just HWMA. It's not going to involve the other, operators. They still maintain their autonomy on this one. Frank, I do want to note that Leslie has got her hand raised. I can see her, and I'm not seeing anybody else at this point, but you might want to ask if there's other comments from board members.
And I also want to just remind the board that a consensus requires exactly that. So far, only 2 of you have weighed in on this, and that's not really a consensus. So, I'm glad that at least Leslie has her hand raised.
Okay, then I would go ahead and first put out the announcement to anyone else on the board that wishes to make a comment, and I'd start with Leslie, and we'll go from there.
Thank you. I would say at this point, I'm tentatively supportive and interested, having this just come across my plate, so to speak, today. I feel like I haven't had enough preparation to give you, like the guarantee that I think you would be seeking. And nor would it be necessarily appropriate. I do have just maybe a couple of questions for you all at Hambro, and that is, clearly we've all been kind of surfing this very volatile CRV atmosphere. Is there anything, quantity, it seems to be one of your concerns, but is there anything else that you would foresee that would, cause you to change your mind, or would, is access to pilot programs sort of pivotal, or what are the other things that would kind of make this program work for you?
In order to expedite some of what we've broken it down into the 3 phases. For phases 2 and 3, the pilot program might be of assistance, but I'm a free market kind of guy, and we're researching this from a free market approach. We can go there and set up and get started in Arcata without assistance from anyone. So we're not counting on those bills. What are you going to do if someone hands you $1 million to open a recycling center? We have a plan. It would expedite the plan if not just with the pilot program, but the other assistance that they're looking at. And one of the other bills, or actually it's the governor's budget request. So those would do it. Other than that, no, I think we've covered the bases. We want to get down, and we know all businesses have risk. This recycling one, at least at this point, the legislature realizes the problems in it. So that up till now, there's been no backstop. Backstop's been in 2 years, we'll adjust the prices. They realize that that's killing a lot of the recycling centers. we can still exist at it. We're fortunate that we have trucks, so we do our own transportation. We don't have to store it or sort off-site. We're just set up well to accommodate it. With the consensus from the board, we're ready to move forward. But without the consensus from the board, we are not. So, it's all, the ball's in your court. I don't see anything. I've been in business myself for many years, and I've been here at Hamburg for 10 years. And I was in the timber industry for 20 years, 30 years, and it has terrible cycles. We're used to terrible cycles. There are enough backstops in it, be it the handling fees, the processing fees, the admin fees, now these pilot programs. We're pretty confident, not overconfident, but pretty confident.
That's good to know. Thank you. And then in terms of HWMA, currently right now, we still receive recycling. We just don't, CRV buyback. I'm assuming that would still kind of work with your system if HWMA still received recycling, but just didn't do the buyback.
That's correct. We have the same situation here where, but fortunately, the transfer station is one of our clients. And so anything that comes to the transfer station, we end up getting, but Recology takes their blue bin and handles that. So we're aware of that. And if people want to drop it off, it will be more convenient. Go to Eureka, then go ahead. But if you want to get your money back, you got to come see us in Arcata.
Okay. I think at this point I could give my support, for you all, in a very general, non-binding decision-making way, at this meeting, for sure, I will be interested to hear a little bit more, I look forward to also seeing it as an agendized item where we can have a little bit more time and information to consider.
I would encourage all of you to visit Crescent City, bring your bottles and cans, leave the glass at home. It's still a loser. But come up and see our operation up here. We've got a good crew. We use our parking lot on Elk Valley Road. We're looking at ways to even expedite that. We're handling up to 200 customers a day and $10,000 to $12,000 on our very busy day, and they're not waiting 2 or 3 hours. They're getting in and out. So come take
Frank,
a look.
I'm sorry, Dave. Frank, I want to make sure that you can see that Robin is also wanting to speak.
I can't see much anybody's hand.
Yeah, so I'm just letting you know.
Okay, well then, Robin, go ahead. You need to unmute, sir.
Thank you, Frank. Quite frankly, I feel a little bit at sea here. I'm not really clear as to what is at stake, and I do much better if I have some written material to look at that would sort of give me a couple of things, give me background. Also, I haven't heard a word about cost in here so far, and I'd like to know the prospective cost versus doing nothing, and then more written information that would point forward, so that Hambro can let me know and other members of the board how they perceive our endorsement resulting in greater efficiency, resulting in lowered costs, some kind of business terminology that is certainly more solid than this sort of rather vague verbal discussion that we're having. But that's what I'd like for the next meeting, for sure. Thank you. That's all I have to say.
All right. Does anyone else have their hand up? Jill?
We've got Elaine.
Thank you. Go ahead, Elaine.
Thanks. Yeah, it certainly sounds like from the information we've gotten that Hambro is well poised to provide services to our community, which is great. It's like Rex said, something that we haven't been able to do for a while now. And so that part is definitely exciting. And so I'm, tentatively, I'm excited about it. It sounds like a great idea, especially if you really are able to pull it off in 90 to 120 days, because we definitely are in no position to do that, which leaves a huge gap for all of the residents in our county. So if you are able to do that, I'm definitely optimistic and supportive. And then I do want to agree with other board members that we'll just be interested to see moving forward what kind of official contract or documents or some non-competitive clause like Rex mentioned that you would need from us in order to, assure that your business is successful. So that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Anyone else? I think we're only missing one, or we're missing one board member, Sophia.
Yeah, I mean, really my line of questioning was based on the premise that I don't think we can give formal direction, give the consensus that the Hamburg Group is requesting of us. But I feel similarly that this would be a really positive thing for our community based on what we've heard, but we need more detail before making, a formal decision. So I understand the business side, wanting to get consensus from the board tonight. But however, we don't have something formal on our agenda for the public to weigh in on or for us to have an in-depth conversation about. So I think you're hearing general support for the concept, but the devil's in the details. And so that'll just come to us in the next month. And I think there's a positive attitude towards what you've proposed from what I'm hearing from our board.
Frank, I want to note that Rex is wanting to address.
I saw that. Go ahead, Rex.
Well, I guess maybe to give them a little more thing. Jill, can we have a recycling? You just said we don't have room. We've got too many washers. We don't have room to do it. We're overflowing. Everything else. I mean, I think we can give them a popular consensus. Basically, we're going to tell them we can't do it within 180. We can't do it in 365 days. So we aren't going to be open CRV recycling anytime soon or in our lifetimes, it sounds like, at HWMA. So you guys give us as many details as you can, but our details are, we haven't been able to do it in 365 before. I don't think we're going to do it in the next 365 and beyond. So I think you guys can move forward and give us all our details and stuff. But I think, I hate to say it, you guys are the only game in town. I don't know why we're even hesitating saying, please come back and give us something formal.
It's actually pretty straightforward. In taking a look at what their proposal is and participating in the conversations with city staff as well, I think that they've got a model that will work well for them. And again, in our conversations and in the interest of transparency, I told them, I can't say we're not moving forward. This is something that needs to go to our board conceptually so we can get an idea of what the board's feeling is going to be about this, and then provide you some certainty about how to do this. So that's why you guys are having this conversation with them directly. So I do want to note that Linda is here. I don't know if she's going to want to address the board, and she may. And I don't know if there's anybody else that might want to address the board on this particular item. But I feel like I've got what I need to continue working with Dave and Randy on this.
Does
Linda?
anyone else wish to address the board? I mean, like as you said.
Linda would like to address the board.
Address the board, please.
Thank you. I want to say to Hambro, thank you for bringing this forward, and I hope you can pull it off. I think it would be wonderful to have that in this community, in addition to perhaps if someday, if things change for us, that we would be able to do something down in Fortuna. One of the things I wanted to make everybody aware of is that we're kind of Recology, and the collection company is kind of different than the rest of the state. any kind of CRV that goes into the recycling does not benefit Recology directly. I mean, it doesn't improve our bottom line at all, our profit. So we don't really have a horse in the race about, whether or not that material goes into the recycling facility. It does offset rates when it does come up, which is good, which never touches what could be given back to those nickels and dimes to the people who were given a promise from the state of California that they should really, be able to fulfill. But one of the things I think for Hambro that I think will make your proposals more palatable for your communities is what I think that you might want to, one of the opportunities that recycling facilities in Humboldt County didn't get a chance to address at the get-go in the past was being able to partner with the collection companies and the cities to try to prevent pilfering of and breaking into garbage containers and recycling containers, and also help address some of the drug abuse that happens around in some of these facilities. And I'm here to offer suggestions about how we were able to do it in Fortuna. We don't give people cash, we give people checks. And there's a way to do that either by hand or through a computer. So I think that if you could come up with a plan with some of the communities you plan to work in, I think that will help help get you more successful in being here in the community. So hats off, I'm glad that you're here and I hope you can do it. Oops.
Well, I'm confident we can. We've had that conversation with Jeremy here in Recology in Gilmore County. We can't police the blue cans.
But yeah, I think the suggestion might be, you might say something like if the company comes to you and they've documented that people are getting into cans repeatedly, that you might be able to assist the collection companies so that it's not causing blight out in the communities, which it happens for us. I'll tell you, I get a lot of phone calls for it. So it happened in the past. And I know that in the city of Eureka, we used to spend about, we've dropped by about $70,000 a year in replacing locks and stuff in some of the recycling containers. And that goes against the ratepayers. So I think, if you could work with us and try to, develop a plan to try to avoid that, I think that would go far in the communities that you want to work in.
So Frank?
Yes.
I feel like we have the direction that we need to continue our work with Hambro, and that Hambro will be able to continue with their efforts towards planning. There's going to be some more formal conversations with the city. So we'll be doing that. We've also had some conversations around pilot project, and I think we've both been speaking with Cal Recycle around if the program is expanded, what that could mean in terms of some future activities. And I think that it will dovetail well with the 58 stores that are currently required to take CRV. So, Eureka residents for those smaller volumes will be able to take things to their local retailers, and people who have larger volumes will be able to drop off materials here, which I think will be of a great benefit. So we have what we need.
All right.
I thank you all for taking the time to kind of talk about this. And Robin, I will get you some background information. This has actually been going on for a little over a year, so you haven't had the chance to hear some of the other things, but we'll get that to you, okay?
Thank you very much.
Yes.
Thank you.
All right, that should close that item, and we should be able to move on to board member reports. Do we?
Tyler, do you want to go ahead and roll call for the board member reports, please?
Absolutely. Pereira?
Nothing to report, thanks.
Hogan?
Nothing to report.
Castellano?
Just quickly, we're doing another Wabash cleanup on June 26th, I believe, and otherwise nothing to report.
Smith?
Nothing to report.
Bone?
Negative.
Wilson?
Nothing to report. Okay, that should conclude item 7. And we can have the next item is Executive Director's Report.
Yeah, thank you. So a couple of, well, actually, I've got a number of things that have been happening this month. So I do want to note for anybody who's had an opportunity to come down to Hawthorne Street after almost 2 decades of identified need, Hawthorne Street rehab project has been completed. So Hawthorne Street was initially identified by HCOG as being a priority street rehabilitation project in 2008. Due to in part because we've got a regional solid waste transfer station, and it was already a pretty old roadway at the time. So we've had a number of delays, as folks will recall, and the city of Eureka received the long-awaited funding, and the rehab project commenced last week and was pretty much completed within the following week. We're still doing some curb and gutter and striping activities. I really want to make sure that everybody, especially Leslie, knows that we are so appreciative of Scott Elsmore and Jesse Willer for all of their coordination efforts over the year. It's actually been longer than that, but they've been really, really amazing. And they did ensure the scheduling of this project would be done after hours so that it had minimal impact on our overall operations and customers, as well as recology. So they found that sweet spot of a window. Last month, board members will recall that we let everybody know that we were going to be closing HWMA's green waste bunker so that we could do some repairs. The bunker channels were cut, and the repair of a pretty sizable pothole, probably could have swallowed a truck, in the loading area was completed. So we did close for 2 days, and we resumed normal operations the following day, and it has definitely helped quite a bit.
Jill,
Yes.
do we still pay 5 cents a ton for road repairs? Do we
I
still?
don't believe.
That was when the original when we originally went down there, and whenever there was a 5 cent road fee that the city wanted, and we used to pay 5 cents a ton to the city.
I'm not aware of any
Okay.
fee that has gone to the city.
All right.
I do know that there was the fee that the county assessed for roadway activity that was about 5 cents for that heavy equipment, but my memory is pretty dim on that one anymore. But no, we're not submitting those. We are working on the universal satellite loading agreement with Humboldt Sanitation and Ecology. The agreement has been in its final draft and it's been distributed, so they are reviewing it now. So we're anticipating that will come to the board in July. Again, that agreement is going to ensure that we've got uniform standards for any satellite transfer station that HWMA enters into an agreement for member agency loading services. We also will be bringing to the board at the next meeting an HHW, our household hazardous waste request for proposal, and that will be en route. Again, with respect to the Fortuna HHW agreement, I really also want to express my appreciation, even though he's not here, for the city manager, Merritt Perry, and the number of conversations and back and forth we've had while we've been working out the implementation details for Fortuna residents. And while it's not directly related, Merritt did bring to his council a preliminary proposal to incorporate the LEA fee into their collection rate structure, which will now bring parity to the authorities, member agencies, and the residents who've been supporting the county's LEA programs over the years. Also want to note that I don't think that we would have gotten a whole lot of traction on this without the work of Linda Wise, as she's been working with them on their collection agreement. So we're finally pulling all of these pieces together. With respect to our facility, as we're seeing that the shelter-in-place restrictions are easing, we've resumed more normal operations, and that is including HWMA personnel as well as our contractors to perform some facility repairs and maintenance. And that's been including light replacement at the transfer station in accordance with an energy audit that was prepared by our CEA. We've done some handrail removal and installation to replace corroded rails and to upgrade to OSHA compliant requirements. And this has all been in the last month. We've had some repairs to our excavator. The equipment was offline for almost 3 weeks, which necessitated using our other remaining excavator between 2 work areas several times a day. And unfortunately, right after this repair was completed, the other excavator suffered a malfunctioning water pump. So we're hoping that that's going to be repaired and we'll be good in terms of our equipment for a bit. Upcoming repairs are going to be including the replacement of a push wall within the self-haul area. So basically, it's going to be a wall angle adjustment and adding some distance between where people are simply taking their material, backing up the trucks, taking their material and dropping it over the top. So we're going to make some modifications to better contain the waste material when it's being pushed up from the sidewall. The other one is to do some repairs to the push pit loading wall in order to address an angling issue and to increase the height in order to provide better protection and clearance for the new Bettendorf trailers that they've received to haul our solid waste out of here. In the last month, we have been also challenged with the fact around some of our staffing because of a number of employees that have been out for non-work related injuries, illnesses, and some scheduled time off this past month. So I'm hoping we'll get a little breathing room as far as that is concerned as well. And of course, continuing to ensure consistency with the local, state, and federal guidelines for COVID. The phase 2 waste characterization study we are preparing to commence with that starting on Monday, June 14th through the 22nd. The fieldwork coordination is, we've been doing some of the pre-selection of routes with the sampling, and we will be working with our franchise haulers to bring those trucks to HWMA so we can set up the floor to receive and conduct the audits. With respect to treated wood waste, our variance waiver application was approved by DTSC, and that is going to allow the acceptance of treated wood waste at the transfer station instead of having to have it go to the household hazardous waste facility. The waiver is good for 6 months. They will allow one extension of 6 months, and we are certainly very hopeful that the legislature will pass and the governor will sign AB 322, which is going to support the alternative management standards. So if your respective cities haven't taken a position on that, we would certainly appreciate it. Yes, sir.
Nothing, my grandkids are watching, so they asked me.
Oh, okay. Staff is preparing written notice to the county LEA, and we will be making announcements through press releases and radio and print ads when we are ready to resume treated wood waste acceptance at the transfer station. And we're slating July 1st after those major facility and repairs are completed, as well as the waste characterization is complete. The solid, yes.
So sorry to interrupt, but we have sent our revised special waste management plan into DEQ last week. And excellent. We are expecting a response back on that, which would allow us to take treated wood waste again. And we're expecting to get a response back on that anywhere from 3 to 4 weeks out, but hopefully sooner.
Better. Even better.
Once we have that, because Oregon has this parity rule with California, we just had to go through the process of that application once the state started making their decisions. So sorry for the inconvenience, but it should be able to come with the waste anytime soon. And I'll let you know as soon as we have it.
No, that would be fantastic. We were anticipating that you would be applying for. We didn't know what the review time period would be. So we've if we don't have to haul it separately, it certainly makes our life a lot simpler. And so for folks who didn't know, that was Gary Penning, and he is with Dry Creek Landfill up in Oregon, and we work very closely with him. 2 quick notes around the Solid Waste Local Task Force. They did form some ad hoc committees, one for recycling contamination and the other for SB 1383, planning and implementation. We've been meeting regularly and have met several times in May and throughout June. The recycling group met yesterday, and the 1383 group will be meeting next week, and the full local task force will be meeting on July 6th for anybody who might be interested in participating in that. Again, the Recycling Contamination Group is trying to develop strategies to address curbside recycling, which of course increases processing contamination and the resultant residual disposal volumes. We've been working with city and county staff to develop a request for proposals to secure consulting assistance for eventual consideration by the HWMA board. We're hoping that we're going to have a draft document to the ad hoc committee at the June 17th meeting. Realize that this is a joint effort by all the cities, so a little bit of herding cats and a lot of different competing demands. And other than that, it's been ongoing support and coordination with respect to the ED recruitment efforts, and that concludes my report for the month.
All right. I believe that is all of our, I guess, does anyone have questions for the executive director? I'm hearing none. So we'll move on from that. And I believe that brings us to the closed session.
That is correct. Would you like me to read that for you, Frank?
I'm sorry, I did not hear what you said.
Oh, I asked if you would like me to read the closed session after you take public comment.
That's fine.
Okay.
Oh, would we like you to leave? Is that
no,
what you asked?
like me to read the closed session agenda item. Would you like me to read that?
Yes.
Thank you.
Right, around heavy equipment.
Me too. It is the intention of the board of directors to meet in closed session for one item, public employment, executive director pursuant to government code section 54957. And Frank, I would just ask if there are any members of the public that would like to address the board at this time.
So moved.
I see no hands raised.
Great. Thank you very much, Tyler. So with that, Tyler, I'll have you turn it over to me.
Yeah, let me go ahead and remove the studio control room real quick.